Hey everybody, it's Party Elite, and today we're getting our first look at some of the brand new Lizardmen units from the upcoming Hunter and the Beast DLC for Total War Warhammer 2. First off, a thank you goes out to Creative Assembly for giving me early access to the DLC so that I can cover it on the channel, and another thanks goes out to INDYPRIDE from Milk and Cookies Total War for being my opponent in the battle you're about to see. If you haven't already checked his channel out, make sure you do, especially if you're a fan of Warhammer or Total War games in general. I'll leave a link in the description down below. Make sure you give his channel a visit if you don't already know about his channel. Fighting against the High Elves, the Spirit of the Jungle will be bringing some of the older Lizardmen units we're used to seeing, but they'll be led by Nakai the Wanderer and supplemented by Sacred Kroxigor, the Cohort of Huatl, and the Dread Saurian. Nakai the Wanderer, our titular beast, comes in at a cost of 2,466 points, fully equipped with Miasma of Despair, Primal Roar, and Golden Tributes. He's a pretty beefy fighter with a significant amount of armor, solid melee stats, and a 520 weapon strength, of which 380 is armor-piercing damage. He isn't all too slow either, and he comes in with Cold-Blooded as an ability for free, of course. The Sacred Kroxigor, in units of 16, at the cost of 1,250 points, are similar to regular Kroxigor, but with slightly higher health, leadership, melee attack, weapon strength, and charge bonuses, as well as magical damage output in melee. The Cohort of Huatl, their Regiment of Renown counterpart, are of course better in melee and have higher leadership, but they also have missile resistance swapped out for a physical resistance of 15%. Finally, the 3,200 point Dread Saurian is a magnificent beast with ranged and melee capabilities, with a tremendous amount of damage output at 750 points, of which 530 is armor piercing. Fear and Terror, poisonous missiles that cause a great deal of damage as well, 15% missile resistance, the ability to fire while moving, and a fair bit of armor make this one hell of a unit. Alright, with the spotlight out of the way, let's take a look at composition and deployment. As I said, my Lizardmen are being led by Nakai the Wanderer. Right in front of him, we've got a pair of Saurus Warriors with shields on either flank, and they're backed by the Sacred Kroxigor on one side and the Cohort of Huatl on the other. In the middle over here, you can see as well a pair of Skink Cohorts, and behind them, we have the Star Chamber Guardians, the Temple Guard Regiment of Renown, as well as the Dread Saurian itself, that massive beast ready to cause a fair bit of damage over the course of this battle. The other side of the field, you can see the High Elves are being led by a prince atop a Star Dragon, and right below that prince is the Mage of Light on horseback. Up front, you can see 3 units of Spearmen. Right behind them, the White Lions of Shrace and the Pure Main Company, the White Lions of Shrace Regiment of Renown, and behind them we've got a pair of Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers with their armor-piercing anti-large capabilities from range, which will be absolutely terrifying for my units, and they are protected with this Phoenix Guard unit over here, also anti-large and armor-piercing, able to sort of help keep these guys alive back over here, while off to the side, the Fireborn Dragon Prince anti-large unit is perhaps looking for an opportunity to push out from its hiding place in the trees and maybe get some nice rear charges onto any of my large dinosaurs that I may have brought in. And all the way off in the distance, you can see as well, we've got some sneaky Illyrian Reavers looking for an opportunity maybe to dive on in. But the action has already begun over here. As you can see, the Dread Saurian is getting hit by all of these Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower shots, and they are all actually going to strike. I think one misses, so a fair bit of accuracy against such a large target. And take a look at the staggering as well. That Dread Saurian gets slowed down significantly because of those shots, so very good use of those shots to get a little bit of damage done already. And you can see the Mage of Light as well as that Prince are making a move already, trying to get aggressive as the Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers continue to fire away. And take a look at that, already about, I would say, maybe 5 or 6% health drop. Morale is dropping as well on the Dread Saurian, so a little nerve-wracking as we get some magic to kick things off. Of course, the Net of a Mintok comes down atop the Dread Saurian, holding it in place, but you can see the Dread Saurian immediately now firing away at the Prince with those blowpipes and javelins, trying to get a little bit of hurt in, and doing so well enough, getting a touch of damage in, but not nearly as much as the damage it's about to witness for itself. As those Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers continue to fire away, the dragon decides to get its breath involved as well, and that is another drop of about 10 or so % hit points. So that Dread Saurian is getting focused down on immediately. Now, it has a pretty hefty HP pool, so if I had something that could heal it and keep it alive, I wouldn't be so worried, but unfortunately for the purpose of this showcase, I couldn't really afford all that much in that avenue, so I'm a little worried about this Dread Saurian. But as you can see, that beast is responding, or at least the skinks atop it are responding, firing away at the Prince and his dragon. But as we see this engagement continue, you'll see the skinks are being pushed in to try and tie down some of these spearmen to hopefully prevent them from diving into my cohort of Wattle and the Sacred Kroxigor over here. But off to the side, you can see the Fireborn are revealing themselves, perhaps looking for an opportunity to dive into the Dread Saurian as well. And that Dread Saurian is in a bit of trouble already at 50% health. But you can see over here the cohort of Wattle pushing in towards the white lines of Trace, and take a look at these glorious charges. Perhaps some of my favorite charge animations, as they just leap into the air, turn their backs to the targets, and just shoulder drop on them. Looks absolutely amazing. Beautiful animation work. Hilarious animation. It's right up there with the belly flops, I think, of the rat ogres and the rolls of the minotaurs. But there's only so much time to enjoy those beautiful charges, as more or less immediately the Star Dragon decides to get involved, turns around and dives on in. Doesn't have the most beautiful of charges, but it does cause a fair bit of damage. As over here you can see we actually get Nakai the Wanderer charging in as well. He has this very interesting kind of flailing animation as he goes swinging and just absolutely devastating some of these spearmen over here with his upcoming blow. There he goes with that massive, I guess it's a mace, good bit of damage over there. So very nice work over there from Nakai the Wanderer with that rear charge, causing a fair bit of morale and health damage. But you can see over here, as the Fireborn push in for a rear charge into the Saurus Warriors over here, my Dread Saurian is firing away at those Fireborn, and I am sending the Star Chamber Guardians in to try and hold them in place. But unfortunately, of course, they are on horseback. They managed to get away rather easily, and this Dread Saurian is seeking revenge, I think, against the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower over here, pushing in, trying to get some damage in, but unfortunately, once more, despite that first strike going through, it does get pinned down by the Net of Mintok, and once more again, the Prince sees the opportunity to roll on in and use its breath attack on the Dread Saurian. That Dread Saurian is in a lot of trouble. These Sacred Kroxigor decide to kind of assist over here, but they're going to be fine unless that Star Dragon decides to dive on in. Back over here on this flank, you can see the Temple Guard are still chasing after the Fireborn. They are extremely quick, and they're trying to shut down the cohort of Wattle once and for all, I believe. Well, up front over here, these skink cohorts are managing to hold down some of these spears, preventing them from having freedom of maneuverability, basically. But you can see back here, on the topic of maneuverability, these slow Temple Guard are still trying to chase after the cavalry. They're perhaps a little wasted, I would say. The Dread Saurian, meanwhile, decides to turn around and push down this way to provide some assistance over here, as Nakai once more dives in with that insane mace of his. Again, I think it's a mace. I think that's the right thing to call it. And you can see over here, as the Fireborn get a nice rear charge into my skink cohort, we actually get the Dread Saurian diving through the Puremain Company, and it does so much damage with its like stomping and it's biting around. It does a great deal of hurt, and again, it causes fear and terror as well, and I'm hoping to capitalize on that with the rear charge. You can see the Puremain Company is very low on health and morale, just under 50% for both, I would say, and look at that damage output. But unfortunately, the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower over there continues to fire away, and again, it's very accurate, so it is getting a lot of work done. And we do have the Fireborn here as well. They could have committed against the Dread Saurian, but perhaps infinitely wiser to pull back into safety, as the Dread Saurian could cause a fair bit of damage. Meanwhile, over here, you can see I am sending the Star Chamber Guardians up over here to try and screen against the Prince, as Nakai once more comes down over here, hoping to compound the damage with his, again, strange but entertaining charge as he comes flailing about and just trying to knock down the Puremain Company over here. A beautiful hit there, and you can see fear and terror have done the trick. The Puremain Company are giving up on the fight. They've been terrified, and they might actually leave the field now. But on the right flank over here, you can see my cohort of Wattle have decided to come on in, but they are rampaging, so they decide to dive right into the Spearmen, and of course the Fireborn Dragon Princes are able to come in to maybe finish the job off. The cohort of Wattle not having a good time, very close to actually dying off completely, but we do get the Dread Saurian getting in here against the Fireborn as well. Again, hoping to just scare them off with the quantity of damage output, while back on this left side you can see the Puremain Company completely giving up on the fight. They are routing. The Prince, meanwhile, is actually chasing after my Sacred Kroxigor over here, again, trying to make sure that they don't come back into the fight. Not a bad idea at all. Meanwhile, over here you can see the Dread Saurian trying to push over here and again just finish off the work on this right flank. So just diving on in, trying to scare off these spearmen, and as you can see, the Fireborn almost closing the gap, ultimately deciding to pull back into safety and stay away from that massive beast. Not a bad call. I give chase for a little while, hoping to use my poisonous arrows to slow them down, but unfortunately, as you can see, as their morale drops, they decide to pull back into safety, and I decide that the Dread Saurian should turn around and dive into these white lines of Trace instead. So I go on in, get a nice charge in, again, a great deal of damage done to both health and to morale there. So I'm very happy with the overall performance of the Dread Saurian, especially considering the situation it was in at the beginning of this battle. And over here you can see I've actually got Nakai chasing after that Mage of Light who has already caused me a fair bit of trouble. Miasma of Despair goes down to reduce leadership and perhaps more importantly speed and vigor. I want to make sure that this mage can't get away, so in goes Nakai, again hoping to cause a little bit of damage over here, maybe scare the mage off the field, but preferably finish that mage off completely, though I don't know about my chances of that in just one charge, especially since the mage is on horseback and is a fair bit faster. Even with the reduction to speed with Miasma of Despair, that mage is a fair bit faster than Nakai, of course. And you can see at the same time over here, the Prince on Dragonback is now shutting down these Saurus Warriors with shields. I do have this Skink cohort here looking for a place to go. Ultimately, the Fireborn Dragon Princes are chasing them down as well, and that's going to hurt a fair bit as that charge comes in from the side. These Skink cohort are not going to have a good time. They'll get absolutely tossed in the air. Health is already low, morale is already low, and this will likely finish them off. And you can see at the same time these Saurus Warriors with shields as well, scared off, terrified off rather, because of that Prince. And that Prince, I think, has turned his attention to Nakai the Wanderer, who is still giving chase to that Mage of Light, perhaps rather wastefully. And back over here you can see these Saurus Warriors with shields are moving in towards those spears again to try and hold those spears in place, as back over here the Dread Saurian is looking for an opportunity to get involved somewhere. Again, using those arrows rather effectively. It does cause arrows, I say javelins and blowpipes rather effectively. It does cause a fair bit of damage, but I need to get it into melee. And you can see going in with another charge over here, just throwing back some of these Phoenix Guard as well as the White Lines of Trace, but eating a shot from the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower that has been re-equipped once more. And though I do cause a fair bit of damage over here, the Phoenix Guard are extremely terrifying. Of course, they have their martial mastery, they've got their physical resistance, armor-piercing, anti-large. They're a very deadly unit to stay engaged against, so I do have to pull away from that ASAP. Meanwhile, over here, you can see Nakai has gotten involved against these spearmen. He's actually popped Primal Roar as well. That helps with physical resistance as well as melee attack buffs, and as a result of that, the Saurus Warriors near him have got those buffs as well. It is an area of effect buff, but they are, of course, rampaging as well. But I just want to get rid of these spearmen as quickly as possible, doing a fair bit of work over there, and that Prince staying in the air while this buff is active, not a bad idea at all. And you can see over here the Dread Saurian, I think, pushing away from the Phoenix Guard over here, but the Phoenix Guard are giving chase, causing a fair bit of damage over here, and the Dread Saurian is in trouble. As you can see, it's not having a good time, even though it's, I guess, pushing into the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower over there. It needs to get away from the Phoenix Guard over here, and the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower over there as well, causing a fair bit of trouble for me, as you can see health is down to about, what, 10% or so. In comes another shot, getting another hit in. Again, it is a massive target, so very easy to hit, but at the same time, you can see the Dread Saurian, the Skinks atop it rather, firing away at the Prince to get a little bit of damage done, but I don't think that's going to be enough. We do decide to give chase to the Mage of Light over here as well, again, using those ranged capabilities to slow her down, but unfortunately, in comes the Net of a Mintok, so the speed difference doesn't make a difference at all, and in come the Phoenix Guard as well. So once again, the Dread Saurian is in a tremendous bit of trouble. Nakai the Wanderer tries to get involved over here to try and save this beast, but unfortunately, just might be impossible. Nakai himself, of course, also a large unit, so the Phoenix Guard are going to have a bit of a field day against him as well. Currently, Nakai is the one having a field day, though, as he comes in, swinging and just twirling that weapon of his around, does a fair bit of work. And of course, the Dread Saurian, despite being under the Net of a Mintok, is able to get melee damage out still, so I do feel okay about dealing with the Phoenix Guard. They're at 50% health, roughly, so hopefully, you know, we'll be able to get some work done over here, but in comes, of course, the Prince, again, atop his dragon, diving into the Dread Saurian. The Dread Saurian is in a lot of trouble. In come the Fireborn as well, getting a nice rear charge, low on morale, low on health. That Dread Saurian is not looking very good at all, and Nakai tried to rescue the Dread Saurian, did a fair bit of damage to the Phoenix Guard, but unfortunately not enough to everything else that got involved, and down goes that Dread Saurian. A beautiful beast. It is unfortunate to see it drop like that, but between the Phoenix Guard, the Fireborn, and the Prince himself, with all their armor-piercing damage, and then with the, of course, the Fireborn and the Phoenix Guard having their anti-large capabilities as well, that Dread Saurian did not last very long. Of course, it got softened up early with those Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers firing away, but a huge unit, an extremely expensive unit, is now completely out of the picture, and the High Elves definitely have superiority. Nakai here looking for a place to wander to and maybe shut down some more units, deciding to chase after the Spearmen over here, and as that's happening, you can see from all the way off in the distance, we actually have the Illyrian Reavers getting involved once more, as down over here you can see that beautiful Star Dragon's Breath being used on my last, I would say, high-tier unit, as the Star Chamber Guardians get absolutely obliterated by that beautiful use of breath. low on health, low on morale. Doesn't look like we're going to be able to accomplish too much. Nakai decides to dive on in to try and get some work done still. Maybe he's able to, scare off these spears. Maybe that'll cause enough damage, but looking at the balance of power, it doesn't look like the Lizardmen have much of a chance. In comes the Prince as well, causing a fair bit of hurt to Nakai as well as the Star Chamber Guardians. The Pure Main Company does decide to give up on the fight, but that's not going to be enough. The Lizardmen ultimately drop their flags, and it is a valiant defeat. That was a very rough fight for the Lizardmen, as I'd come out expecting a somewhat ranged heavy enemy army, or at the very least a more infantry heavy army. Instead, completely outpaced by cavalry and a prince atop a dragon, my anti-large units were woefully under-equipped. The Dread Saurian could have used the assistance of some type of healing to keep it active for longer, but ultimately it was pinned multiple times and destroyed relatively quickly compared to its 3,200 point cost. Nakai kept the fight alive for as long as possible, but the constant anti-large charges from the Fireborn as well as the constant attacks of the dragon meant the Lizardmen suffered a valiant defeat. Now, I hope you enjoyed this little battle showcase, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to this channel as there's more to come for the new DLC. I'll be kicking off a Let's Play as Wolfheart soon as well, so stay tuned for that. As always, a massive thanks goes out to all of my channel members and patrons for supporting the channel on a monthly basis, and a big old thanks goes out to each and every one of you for watching. Until next time, cheers.